What's going on, everybody? It's Bukkittz. We're back. I can't believe it.
Unbelievable.
Unreal, dude. Freaking petrified to be back. I'm really shaking, quivering in my boots and my shoes and my slippers right now, man.
Hell yeah, brother.
Nah, I'm playing, but it's so good to be back.
Yeah,
For real, because I freaking love making podcasts and I love podcasting, and for a while my equipment wasn't putting up with me. Stopped committing to it. Was in between two places. I'm home full time now. Can record these whenever. God bless the way everything turned out. I'm happy to be back. We have, as you can judge by my shirt, as you can judge by this is the official Conor McGregor Glazing World Tour. No, I'm kidding. We're going to be talking about UFC 303, obviously. We're going to talk a little bit about 302 that just went down. We're going to talk about the UFC landscape as it stands, and probably some other stupid crap too, but that's what we're here for. Bukkittz is officially, as you can see, move your big head. It's officially our new logo, our new branding, our new everything. Merch dropping soon, on the lookout. I actually have some sketches. Stop interrupting my video. I actually have some good news about merch coming soon. So stay tuned for that. I have some sketches. Anything you want to shamelessly plug?
No, I'm good. Just introduce myself quick. My name's Mike. I'm Joe's buddy.
Former guest of the show.
Been on this podcast before in the past. I'm here to help him out, get it rocking and rolling. We're here, ready to talk. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should get right into it.
Yeah, man.
UFC 302 was crazier than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
I thought Kevin Holland was going to break that guy's arm off.
Yeah. Well, that was one of those cards where, I was sitting there watching, waiting for something to come out of it. I felt like a lot of these fights, granted, they were good fights, competitive fights, but it took a while for that to be a finish. And you already knew when Trailblazer showed up, I had a feeling it would be the difference,
It's never anything short of a banger when he's in the ring, just like how
Absolutely.
Now that we're back on YouTube and we're under the Bukkittz name, every single video will be 45 minutes to an hour, every single podcast, and we're going to be going straight cruising on one topic usually. It'll be broad, but we're going to keep the content really sports oriented moving forward. So if you're in for sports, and hope you're in for this ride with me, because Bukkittz has been my nickname for a long time, actually, before you even met me, and making it into my own brand is gotta do stuff I'm passionate about, and sports is that. So
yeah,
gonna talk fighting.
Yeah,
now that all introductory stuff is out of the way, we can keep focused on the UFC.
Yeah.
As we were saying, Kevin Holland almost ripped that guy's arm off. I saw it snap. That was the most brutal snap I've ever seen live.
Oh, yeah.
In the UFC. That was disgusting.
Yeah, without a doubt.
For a submission, at least.
Yeah. I don't know if we've seen anything like it recently. I can't think of much in the last couple of years where a guy just let it break like that. He probably was already broken, is my guess. And
this guy?
Yeah. He's probably the last one.
Probably the closest one.
Yeah, we'll certainly get to him. No doubt about it.
There's a lot that we're going to be getting to about him later on, but I guess you're just going to have to sit and endure through the entire preliminary process to us talking about Conor McGregor, because we're lucky to be able to say his name, damn it.
Yeah, that's right. I'm excited, man. I'm certainly
Me
excited.
too. It's always aura.
Yeah.
It's always aura.
He's the one, man. He's
It's the chosen one.
He's everything in the UFC when it comes to poster child,
Yeah, he's really the only poster child they've ever had.
Yeah, if you're not a fight fan or you're not a big UFC guy, most people know the name Conor McGregor.
Even if you've just heard it.
Without a doubt, when you think of boxing, you think of Mike Tyson. When you think of, maybe you think of Serena Williams when you think of tennis, and you could say the same thing with basketball, like Michael Jordan, and I think Conor's kind of one of those names. He's definitely solidified himself, and just in the last 10 years or so, maybe 15 now, he's definitely put himself in that position to be the poster child, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean Jones is a guy who's up there. It's one of those guys, but none of them have the mainstream power that Conor has. And I feel like the fact that this undercard on 303 is like, a lot of people are critiquing it. A lot of people are saying it's not as stacked as it should be for a Conor card. A lot of people are even saying Conor Chandler shouldn't even be a main event, which I find crazy. What are your thoughts on that as a whole? Like, do you think Conor would co-main a pay-per-view?
No. Like, honestly, at this point...
Why the hell would he?
Well, if you look back to UFC, I think it's fair to say that in the UFC, they try to at least get one title fight to be the main event of their pay-per-views, whether that be the BMF title that they've just introduced recently. It may be if one of the titles is lacking in that department, they'll start to stack them. You know, it's no shame or not to discredit what they're doing in the women's flyweights, but a lot of times you'll see them stack those cards to try to make them equal what's pay-per-view worthy. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Conor McGregor has a title on the line, especially with the guy, his opponent here coming up, Michael Chandler. It's one of those situations where...
More on Michael Chandler later.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have those two guys...
We're just diving into recovering every little surface level topic right now, but we're really going to dive deep into some of these things.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying too, it's just... I mean, they're star power, and at the end of the day, you don't need a
lot
title.
of star power.
People are going to
Your
view in, tune in.
show.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think so. I don't think you need a title necessarily if you're Conor McGregor.
I don't think so either. Do you know off your memory when the last time there's been a UFC pay-per-view with no title on the line?
No.
It had to have been a while.
I'd imagine it has to be one of those Poirier McGregor fights.
Do you think that was the last one?
There might be. We might be missing something here in our minds.
Oh, the Pereira Izzy's for a title. So
yeah, they always try to stack something. So
yeah, I find that crazy. I think Conor's the only guy the UFC features as a main event fight.
Yeah, probably.
You know, consistently without a title, which is crazy, and that's probably where a lot of the criticism comes from. Maybe we just answered my own question, but
sure,
dude, it's back to just kind of wrap up our 302 coverage before we go into 303 and what the current UFC is looking like. Let's talk about let's just cover Islam and Dustin before we briefly fly over the disaster class of Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa, because there's definitely way more important things to be said and taken away from the Poirier fight. So the fact that was even a fight, and the fact that Islam got cut open by Dustin, that had, I think, every fan reeling. Like, I think every fan, after, like, every big shot Dustin would land after that cut opened, I think every fan was, like, scooching up off their chair. Like...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it was apparent, after the first round, once Poirier was kind of able to survive some of that wrestling, and you could see that I think he took a page out of Volkanovski's book when you saw him match up the first time against Islam.
Yeah.
As far as from a defensive standpoint, you saw, a way to kind of get out of those chokes and kind of keep your neck in and keep moving those arms. And he was able to avoid getting into any of those...
You know what I really noticed from that he took out of Volk's page was the grip control.
Right.
The not allowing him to clasp his hands together, secure any of these things.
Well, yeah.
Until that darts got put in, but...
Exactly. I mean, when it comes to wrestling in general, when you're dry like that, it's easy to get put into a submission out of a wrestling position when you're on the ground with a guy like Islam. So, for Poirier to survive those, and he knows he's probably more confident on his feet than Islam. And, I think in general, from a fighter's mentality standpoint, I think both fighters felt comfortable in different positions, and both of them, their game plans were to get to those spots, and you saw a war right down to the fifth round.
Yeah, it was insane, man. I actually thought that one of those Poirier right hands was about to frickin' crack him.
Yeah.
And if it did, and Islam flew back, and the commentators started yelling, and the fans got into it, you don't know what Dustin could have gotten done on the ground, dude.
And you know what, too? It's credit to Islam and his striking ability too. I think that's a little bit underrated when it comes to the UFC because even though he was,
he really is.
I don't necessarily think he was desperate to go for grappling, but he knows that's his strong suit. But at the end of the day,
he knows how to make people think about it as well. I mean, as you should.
Sure, and when you can stand there with a guy like Poirier and it turns into a scrap like it did,
he held his own.
He definitely
outstruck him in some rounds.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times, especially in America, we don't like to give credit to the Dagestani Russians when it comes to the UFC because I think
it's just because of the style, man.
There's just some internal feelings about it, I think, on this side of the country.
And people are probably expecting a freaking tirade from this freaking raging Conor fan about how boring it is to watch the Khabibs and the Islams and the Umars and the...
I mean, you gotta give credit where credit's due. It is MMA. It's mixed martial arts. And
not boxing.
Every martial art is...
that's why I'm trying to be fair. Islam definitely outboxed Dustin in some rounds. And that's definitely impressive because we saw... In Islam's only loss, we saw how stiff he was on his feet, and that's what kind of led to the narrative of everyone saying he needs takedowns.
Yeah.
Would you say that's fair to say? I mean, his one knockout kind of made people believe there was a big weakness there.
You can make an argument that he needed a takedown because at the end of the day, he needed the takedown to finish the fight.
Yeah.
So in some regards, maybe. But at the end of the day, too, looking back at it, even if it went to the judges, I don't know. I think two of the judges would have scored it for Islam.
With that night of freaking judging, who knows?
Yeah, I mean...
that was ridiculous, man. That whole night, 302, was terrible. Terrible judging.
Yeah. It's a good transition into the Strickland Costa fight.
Thank you, because I was just about to say the same thing. I'm like, speaking of... bad judging.
Yeah.
Strickland Costa was the epitome of it, and luckily, thank God, it had no effect on the fight really because the other two judges got it right, and it does kind of matter though because it goes down as a split decision win for Strickland and not a unanimous.
Yeah. When
I really thought that was a clear 50-45 for Sean Strickland.
Without a doubt. I mean... I don't know I can't remember the judge's name, but you'd have to think there's some money being put in his pocket somewhere.
Yeah, man.
Because I have no idea how you go to a split decision in a
How
fight.
How do you have a 49-46 for Costa? In what world did Costa win a round? In what world did he win 4 rounds?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I'm thinking maybe he just wrote the wrong name down or checked the wrong box. Was that a mistake?
Yeah. No, that's just...
Do they not review the cards before they turn them in? Or?
Yeah, that I can't have I don't have an answer for you, but I was pleasantly surprised at Sean Strickland's performance. I mean, I understand...
I love him.
He went to...
let me get biased. Yeah. I freaking love him.
Yeah, I think he's an
Sean Strickland is a beast.
Great entertainer, but I give credit where credit's due. I thought he was relatively one-dimensional going in, but that style where he's pushing forward...
It is the toughest to defend.
Yeah. Stance
in... striking output I've ever watched.
And that too, it's like you hear all about his training and it seems like he's training and fighting literally in the cage 5 rounds, 10 rounds every day. So I mean for him it feels like a sparring session. And he goes really hard every time. Those guys in their camp with Chris Curtis and trying to think of some other guys down there. They fight their asses off, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
they scrap, man.
Yeah. So it
Sean
shows.
Strickland, even better personality, but really emerged himself, in my honest opinion, as one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world.
Yep. He is. He definitely is, and he deserves a title shot.
And I think he got robbed and should still be champion to this day. I do not think Dricus beat him.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that's what they're setting up next is Strickland.
Sean wanted to stay active.
Yeah, he needs to wait at this point. I would not take another fight until he
I would not either. Glad we agree on that because I would not do anything for the UFC until they give me that title shot.
Yep.
On to 303.
Yeah, that's right.
Here we go, man. Kicking off, can we talk about the fact that Cub Swanson and Andrei Arlovsky are fighting on the prelims?
Alright, I can get behind that for sure. Those guys are 2 legends, and Orlovsky's been around since I was like in diapers, at least.
Dude, I know. Dan Orlovsky, I almost called him.
Oh, yep.
Stop. interrupting my podcast.
Come on, Cars. You should know better. We're trying to film.
Shout out Chip Diamond. Unreal.
Unreal.
Punk. Stupid idiot.
If you know, you know.
IYKYK. Whatever the hell that means. Alright. Ian Gary versus Michael Venom Page.
That's gonna
what do you make of that?
That's gonna be a banger, straight up. I mean, Michael Venom Page. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Michael Venom Page, he pulled up from Bellator, I think. I believe he's definitely been a former champion.
Yep, he's from Bellator.
Ian Gary is a rising star, and you have a veteran in Michael Page. I don't quote me on this, but I believe he's around 36, 37, Michael Page.
He's in his 30s. He's kind of like Mike Chandler.
Yep, so... But stylistically speaking, that's going to be a stand-up affair, and it's going to be fun to watch it from a fan standpoint.
Yeah.
Gary
is a strong wrestler, though.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes to the ground, it should be an intriguing fight.
We saw in MVP's UFC debut, though, what happens when you try to take him to the ground.
Right. I mean, Michael Venom Page, to me, is probably the most intriguing fighter on the feet since a guy like Wonderboy, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a killer, man. Yeah. MVP's a savage. And, MVP's one of those guys, just like Sean Strickland. I think he's one of those dudes where, you can just put him in the octagon, and on any given night, he can just win the world title.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's an interesting, fight about this one is that you got a guy who's rising up the ranks, and he's beat the likes of Neil Magny and Jeff Neal and Ian Gary, and here he is kind of taking out these ranked guys who have been there, they've been durable, and or maybe he didn't fight Jeff Neal. I think he was originally slated to fight Jeff Neal, and then he fought Gary.
Yeah.
Or Neil Magny, I'm sorry.
He fought Magny, now he's fighting Gary.
So, Ian Gary's he's at that level now. You can tell stylistically he can keep up with these guys, and Michael Venom Page is going to definitely give him a serious challenge. I guess the only thing I'd question from Michael Page is if he doesn't get a good shot in early, I'd imagine that Ian Gary's volume, especially if through, I think it's only 3-rounder, but if it gets through that to late second, third round, Ian Gary, he's able to put some combos together, and he's very patient and poised, and he can put a strike onto you. So I'm excited for that one, no doubt.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. I think in that division too, that's one really where the UFC hasn't been as active in that division. You know what I mean? 170 hasn't had the most activity in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time Leon fought? Colby Covington?
It might be.
Colby Covington was the last time Leon Edwards stepped in the octagon. That was months ago, man.
Yeah.
I think I was at your place watching that.
Probably, and we'll definitely cover Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad in the future, no doubt about it, because they're coming up in July, so I'm excited to talk about that too.
Yeah, and you gotta think the MVP Ian Gary, with how big of a name Gary is, especially overseas, and with how MVP's bursted onto the scene, fresh out of Bellator, you gotta think that name, the winner of that, will get their name inserted into the
potential
winner of
shot, right?
Leon and Bilal sweepstakes.
So it's funny we didn't remember his name. I mean, that's literally his nickname. So
remember the name, Bilal Muhammad, dude.
What is this guy's name?
And what's crazy too is out of any guy in 170 right now, he's just a wild card of a guy who could go out there and dog walk Leon Edwards. We don't know what's gonna happen with that. We have not seen the most of Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah, I mean. To even put it in perspective, it's
we've seen him up, we've seen him down.
He beat Gilbert Burns, recently in his most recent fight, and he's a durable fighter. He took it to
Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is one of the elite guys on the planet.
No doubt.
Elite boxers as well, probably top 5 boxer in the UFC. I mean, so much talent around the UFC right now. I feel like just the way things progress and the way the months go on, it's just, I don't know how Dana gets all this talent featured on these shows. There's so many things that need to fall into place to make these matchups happen, and it's really insane.
No doubt.
As a promoter,
he's probably the best at it, man.
He has to be. I mean, who's better at promoting a fight than Dana? somehow makes every single... He can make any weight class, any main event feel important. It's like UFC. Yeah. It's like the presentation of it. It's everything always feels important.
Yep.
That moves on to... want to talk about Pfeiffer and Barrios?
Yeah, I mean...
185?
Sure. I mean, looking at this fight... I know little bit about Joe Pfeiffer. My understanding is that Dana White, he backs him pretty well, and he might have lost his last fight. I can't remember who he took the L to, but
it was on my tongue.
Yeah,
I remember his last fight.
Yep, and I think he's probably, I'd say he's got to be the favorite going in against a guy like Mark, who he's a veteran of the sport as well. I've seen him in several fights. No doubt about it, and. Should make for an interesting...
I'm definitely more familiar with Mark than I am.
Yeah, Baralt is that? I think that's how you would say his name.
It is Baralt.
Yep, and he's been durable through a lot of prelims the last couple of years, so I'm definitely excited to see what those guys put down in the octagon.
If they end up staying on the main card, that is. I mean, there's a lot of fights that can get announced, but it's listed over Ian Gary and MVP right now.
I suppose the thought process is similar to like what Gaethje and Chandler did at Madison Square Garden, where you just, if you want to get butts and seats, man, for a card like this, put those two on first.
Get the most eyes on the TV too,
Absolutely.
Because there are definitely people who don't stay up for all these.
Well, I mean, think about that. Ian Gary, Michael Venom Page open up a McGregor card. That would put some.
It's just electric, bro.
I'm excited, man.
Straight up.
It's gonna be one of those cards, dude.
It's gonna be one of those cards you talk about for months and months after.
Yeah.
Like. I really wish, I don't want this to sound distasteful, I wish there was a better women's fight on this card. I wish there was a bigger name, marquee women's fight that, I honestly wish there was a women's title fight on this second co-main Connor and even push that Jamal Hill and Carlos Olberg fight down the card because...
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where it gets kind of... the water gets a little fishy, because then you're kind of talking about how do we value these? Are we talking about who's going to sell the most fights, or are we putting our champion on last? And it seems like from a UFC standpoint, their philosophy has always been the champions go on last. I mean, even if you have, and that makes sense. I think that's something they shouldn't try to get away from. And if you're going to have a name like McGregor, then you can stack the card underneath him. But you don't necessarily need to because he'll draw. And at the end of the day...
Don't always need a title.
Right. This fight, I'd imagine, has to be a contender's fight in some regard for probably either the flyweight or bantamweight division for the women.
So the fight happening at 303 actually is women's bantamweight. It's Mayra Bueno Silva and Shazan.
Okay.
So... Basically, I've seen a lot of Chazan. She's like high intensity, high motor.
Yeah.
She's on the ground, especially. She's like a Chandler motor on the ground. Like just rabid almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like her in that fight. I think that's definitely, if I were a betting guy, which we'll get into later, I would probably bet on Chazan if you were throwing together a main card parlay because I really like her motor. Originally, Jamal Hill was supposed to fight Khalil Roundtree.
Yeah.
Roundtree, I forgot what the injury was, but Roundtree dropped out. I don't remember if it was like a flare-up or something. I don't remember if it was like something like that or if it was just like a training injury, like a freak accident. But Roundtree dropped out, and I remember being sad because I thought that fight was going to be kick-ass. Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree. Someone would have left motionless.
Yeah. Well, listen, this advertised fight between Carlos Olberg and Jamal Hill, like, let's not sleep on what Carlos Olberg can bring to the table, man.
Yeah, you're right. I'm falling victim to that right now.
Yeah, I mean, here's my understanding. Last time I checked, I think he was 12-1 on the cards, so he's put up a crazy resume for himself going into this.
And definitely a guy who deserves to fight Jamal Hill.
I mean, a lot of people might not even be familiar with Carlos Olberg. My understanding is that he comes from that Adesanya camp with Volk and Dan Hooker and those guys down there.
Back in the day, Kamaru, Francis.
Yeah,
They're all in that tree.
They kind of all are in that same. I think they're called city kickboxing. Is what they're.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
I don't really remember the name.
And I believe it's a light heavyweight division. So this guy's a big guy, and I imagine he spars a lot with an Adesanya in their camp. And Carlos Olberg, a lot of those Adesanya fights, Volk fights, he's always on the prelims, and I'm one of those guys that likes to sit down and watch it all.
Yeah.
And every time he comes up, man, he's like one of those heavy betting favorites, and he wipes through this competition. So let's
definitely earned his stay.
When we're talking about a guy who's been a former champion in Jamal Hill, and then you got a guy like Carlos Olberg coming out, it's going to make for an interesting clash at Costa.
Yeah, I think so too. Now that you really put it like that, I mean, I think really it's just Conor McGregor's main eventing. Jamal Hill was supposed to fight Roundtree in kind of a stylistic dream fight.
Yeah.
And he ends up, now he's fighting Olberg, who isn't just as big of a name, and even in my mind, the fight's kind of getting swept under the rug a little because...
It should, and that's my point is that...
Just because it's not originally what it was.
A lot of people are probably looking at Jamal Hill and thinking, oh, he's been a champion, he's going to wipe the floor with this guy, and I wouldn't say that.
That's kind of how I saw that.
I'm going to be honest, Carlos Olberg, he's going to bring the power, he's going to have the patience, he's going to stand there, and Jamal Hill, I'd imagine he's scared since he got hit by Pereira, you know what I mean? You start to be a little hesitant when it comes to going in for strikes when you've been clocked.
I was gonna mention Alex too. It was coming from that Adesanya camp, as you mentioned. Anyone in that camp is very familiar with all the Pereira Adesanya fights. It's probably the most prized rivalry in the UFC in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Or, well, not 10, but probably past 6, 7, since all the Pete Conor stuff, since all the Khabib Conor stuff. I'd say Pereira Adesanya is probably taking the cake for the biggest rivalry.
Yeah, well...
Everyone's familiar with all of it, and you best believe they're studying that Pereira Jamal Hill fight, too.
Well, what better way to get yourself back in title contention for the title you lost against a guy like Pereira than to beat a guy from the camp who beat Pereira.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's kind of sending a subliminal. It's kind of like some Drake Kendrick Lamar shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way of looking at it because we're talking about a higher division.
It's like if Jamal was Kendrick dropping the sneak diss on Metro Boomin and the Drake beef.
Adesanya winning over Pereira 85, Pereira winning over Jamal Hill at 205. The best way for Jamal Hill to get his name back in title contention is to beat a guy in the Adesanya camp who's 25 pounds heavier. And quite frankly, how do you not want that fight again?
Yeah.
So
I think
it'll be good.
I think we're in store for Pereira Adesanya 5 down the line very soon. But
we'll see about that. I got my opinions on it too. I mean,
we can make a whole episode about that, but we should stay on course with 303 because we haven't even mentioned this yet.
Are you ready?
Let's frickin' dive into it, man.
All right, man. I'm here.
UFC 303.
It's gonna be a good one.
June 29th?
Yep.
June 29th.
So far, so good for the main event.
Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler.
Yep.
5 rounds, 170. Who the hell's going to do it? First take. Who gets it done? June 29th.
All right. Well, I mean, the short answer, I think Chandler. I know that sounds insane. When you ask a casual.
Very, very interesting.
The long answer, I still think Chandler. But granted, I do believe that Conor could easily win this fight. And let me give you some scenarios. Okay, so for one, we haven't seen Conor in a couple years since he broke his leg in the Poirier trilogy. And in that fight, you could argue that he was winning the first round. So he definitely brought it. And that was a couple years ago now. But that's not so...
And the widespread thing on the internet is to say that Dustin was waxing him the whole round before the leg break, which is just so wrong.
Yeah.
Just so incorrect.
Right. And, Conor, he put on immense amount of size when he was gone in the UFC. For better or for worse, he did. And, since then, he's had a lot of time to recover and heal. And at the end of the day, we see a lot of the crazy party moments and the advertising and the commercials and all that. But
with a guy like Conor, too,
you just never know what he's doing underneath when it comes to training. He could be...
You never know he's been known too to even post videos from 2 years ago. Like, Dana said it himself. Sometimes he'll have a beard in the videos. Sometimes he won't have a beard. Like,
Right.
These videos, you can't trust everything you see on the internet, especially with a guy as profiled as Conor, because
Yeah.
it's like, you don't know what he's doing. He could be posting all these party videos as clickbait and smoke stream for Chandler, as he's really just dogging out in the gym every day.
Yeah.
You don't know.
It's a good point. And then I guess from that other position, it could be exactly what we think it is from the surface, is that Conor isn't taking this as seriously as we think. You could argue he's past his prime at this point, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Um,
The Ultimate Fighter would probably
money
lead you to
talks.
believe that he's just
yeah.
staying in it for the money at this point, too.
And, you're fighting a guy who, he's taking it damn serious. He's trained for this
And
moment for
he's
2
been
years.
begging for this.
And he wants Conor. He's ready for it.
And he's admitted he's fine with the fact that he's Conor's red panty opponent. Like, he's admitted that. He's like, I don't care what the label is on me for fighting Conor and wanting to fight Conor and begging for it. He wants it because he knows what it brings him. He knows what it brings to the table of the UFC landscape. He knows what it brings to the idea of his legacy.
Yeah.
Chandler he doesn't care about any label. All he has cared about for 2 years now is how the hell can I fight Conor McGregor. And he finally has it on UFC 303 if he wants it.
Yeah. That's, we've been waiting, like we were talking about, for years for this one. And,
It's been about 3 years.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's Conor's fault.
I don't know exactly what to expect, and that's, I guess, some of the best parts about the UFC is you don't know what to expect.
You never know what to expect. A lot of discourse right now is about if the fight will even happen. What are your thoughts on the fight not happening?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, there's a couple positions to this moment. I think we're filming this in the beginning of June, so we're a couple weeks out, and we don't know. We really don't have any idea because we have controversy already with the press conference in Dublin. We had originally
the press conference was canceled.
Yep. So a couple days ago, they were supposed to have the one in Dublin like they did back in the day, and he canceled it.
Pre-orders on ESPN Plus went down.
Yep.
They were taken down. We later found out Ticketmaster was hacked, so a lot of people are blaming that for the pre-orders coming down, which makes more sense to me than the fight being canceled, because they wouldn't take the whole pay-per-view down, I don't believe, if one fight got canceled, even though it is a McGregor card.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would take the whole thing down.
Yeah. I think it's going to happen.
I think Conor shows up June 29th.
Yeah.
That is my thought right now.
Sure. And it God forbid something, changes on that. Let me ask you, I mean, who do you want to see step in? If it's within maybe 5-10 days notice, who's the guy that if Michael Chandler says, I'm getting into the octagon, it doesn't matter who's across from me, who's going to step in for that big payday?
There's two options for me.
Yeah.
This is going to sound so crazy. I think it's either going to be my more realistic, probable answer that I will go with for you would be Max Holloway for the BMF.
Yep.
At 170 or at a catch weight. That would be because Max probably walks around around there.
Yeah.
Probably 165. He might have.
That'd be so badass.
That would be amazing. Happened. He could fight at 162 against a 170. Doesn't matter. He can be underweight. But Max is the main option you would have to think as a replacement. I actually expect them to announce Max as a backup for the main event in the coming weeks before the fight really gains its even more steam than it already has. But I expect them to come out with an announcement about Max being the replacement fighter. But my second answer is Volkanovski.
I like your answers. I do.
Which is crazy, but it's just he openly is saying he's fine fighting on short notice, and he's fine being that guy to where when the UFC needs someone to come in and deliver a main event, he's fine being the guy, his words were, to raise his hand and be that guy to come and do it.
Well, I love
So, like,
I love both possibilities that you put out on the table.
Volk at 170?
Yeah. It would be interesting. I mean, I'd imagine he walks around heavy. He's 180
does. He's a
pounds.
big guy.
So he wouldn't have to do any cutting. And
Volk at 170 would be scary, dude.
the reality of the situation is this. Michael Chandler, no matter who is in that octagon come June 29th, it's going to be fireworks. Like, if it's one of those three, Connor, Volk, Holloway, it does not matter.
There's fireworks on the main event on June 29th.
Those are three guaranteed names where if I bought a ticket to this fight expecting Connor, you might leave happier should something happen to Connor being in that position.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
You know? So.
But as of right now, it is Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. Main event, UFC 303. The winner, what God only knows what's next for them. I'd imagine the winner gets whatever the hell they want next.
Yeah.
Those are probably two of the UFC's biggest stars right now. I mean, not probably, that is two of the UFC's biggest names. Chandler McGregor. Chandler just gained a reputation very recently through fireworks show over and over again. McGregor, living legend. And when I make my prediction right here, I do not want it to be seen as biased and reflective of this poster, of this t-shirt. I know I've seen Conor fight. I've seen Conor fight everyone he's fought since he fought Chad Mendes and Jose Aldo. I know what Conor deals with stylistically. I know what he looks like at 170. I know what he looks like at 155. I know what he looks like against wrestlers. I know what he looks like against strikers. Michael Chandler is not going to try to grapple and hug Conor McGregor the entire time, even though if he wanted to, he could win off points and wrestle Conor all night. In my honest opinion, I think he could. He could make it boring. He could ruin everyone's night. Michael Chandler in 2 million years will never do that. I think it's just going to be a pure stand-up. And here's where I'm going to put up road spikes. I swear. If the road spikes are going up, don't drive down my road or you're getting spiked, buddy. It's over for you. Nah, but for real, I think stylistically, there's a lot of times in their stand-up engagements in these fights where Conor comes out feeling it more in the first round. I think he comes out more sensical and less excited. I think Chandler comes out way more excited, way more knockout ready, you know what I mean? Like, looking for a finish right out of the gate when Conor tries to kind of ease into the fight a bit. I think if Conor McGregor weathers the early storm of Chandler, I think he's going to put him down with a left hand and get a technical knockout finish in the first, second, or third round. I do not see this fight under any circumstance going past the third round. And my ultimate prediction is a Conor McGregor left hand leading into a TKO on the ground. I think Chandler just leaves himself too open, too much, and I think Conor, with the added power he's going to have at 170, with what strikes we've seen break Mike's chin in the past, and with the amount of rest Conor's had, and ultimately with the precision, he's statistically the most accurate puncher in the UFC, both in history, both with vertical down punches, with left hooks. He has the highest landing percentage of all these strikes. And I think Chandler leaves himself too open. I think he leaves himself too open, and I don't see a world where McGregor doesn't capitalize on it June 29th. I don't think Chandler's going to... Like I was saying before us so rudely frickin' interrupted, dude. Get rid of the Bukkittz Cola. It's not on sale yet. Can't be plugging that yet.
Right.
But no, like I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, I think Conor gets that finish, man. I think Chandler leaves himself too open. I think Conor is just the more technical, accurate striker of the two. And real quickly, what do you think's next for the winner? If Chandler wins, if McGregor wins, what do you think each of them do?
I personally think if Conor wins, he gets an immediate title shot.
I think so also.
Like, that's guaranteed. If he wins, he gets a title shot.
My prediction, actually, was that Conor was going to win and call out Islam. I'm thinking now, I'm making this prediction official. I think Conor wins and then calls out Leon Edwards for a 170 title fight.
I mean, hell, that'd be an interesting fight, too. But I think if Conor can find a way to knock out Chandler, there's no doubt in my mind that he wants Islam. Like,
do you think he'd want
because of
Islam?
the Habib, that's money printed right there.
Yeah, that is money.
Should Chandler win, I do also think he should get a second shot at the title.
I think if Chandler wins, he's 100% just going to call out Islam for the title at 155. Or
yeah, he waited too long and he missed out on opportunities to get himself in that position.
True.
So I think that...
Or will he call out Max Holloway if he wins?
Honestly, I think that Max Holloway will fight Poirier next.
Really?
Yes, I think it makes sense for the BMF title. If
You
Poirier,
don't think Poirier's done?
if Poirier chooses to come back, I can almost guarantee that's what's next for Poirier.
I think Conor's the only guy who'll do it.
I mean, maybe.
They need that third fight.
And that's the other thing too. What's more intriguing to me might be what does the loser do in this fight? Because
Yeah, I said third fight. Wouldn't be a fourth. They've only fought twice. The
Like-
last one doesn't count. Alright, onward.
right, like I said, I do believe that the loser is a little bit more intriguing as far as the path is concerned because a guy like should obviously we just saw Poirier lose. We see Conor lose or Chandler lose. All three of those guys will be advertised at the co-main to main event position no matter what. So as far as I'm concerned, BMF titles are possibilities. I could see a Poirier McGregor rematch, and I also think should Conor lose and he wants to come back, if Poirier really does retire, I could definitely see Nate Diaz.
I was just about to bring that up next. Will
Yes.
we ever get that trilogy?
And we'd love to talk
freaking
about that
love
and see
to.
that shit for sure.
We will talk about that next time.
Yep.
But for now, I think we're going to wrap it up. But before we go, I just want to say, if Michael Chandler is left without an opponent, doesn't have to be Holloway or Volk. Could always bring out Colby Covington.
Yeah.
In a winner is Donald Trump's favorite fighter fight, and they officially get crowned the United States champion.
Yeah, that would be certainly something, without a doubt.
The new UFC United States Championship.
Hey man,
Winner gets it wrapped around their waist by Donald Trump. It is Donald Trump's new favorite fighter.
gimmick fights, man. They've done it with BMF. I wouldn't put it past them. Now the TKO merger's in play.
Oh my god.
All
Throw
right.
that thing out of here. Kind of like how we're about to throw this episode of Bukkittz away.
All right, Joe.
Sir, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Anytime, brother. What the hell? I'm knocking shit over here. And you're the reason this logo is made. So shout out to you for making the logo. Shout out to you for helping me set this all up. Shout out to you for being a co-host for me. Thank you for being the first recurring member of the show.
Yeah, no problem. I look forward to coming back. Hope we can do more of these UFC reactions and reviews.
Of course, man. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming very soon, so make sure, if you enjoyed watching this, make sure you slap that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know as a podcaster what I can do better, what you want to see more of. Let me know what your thoughts are on the content discussed in the pod, such as if you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong. If you're not the biggest UFC fan, I appreciate you for watching the whole thing, if you did, and trying to even keep along with something maybe you don't know the most about. But if you are a big UFC fan, let me know what you liked about this one. All my social medias are down in the description. You can send criticism or whatever that way too. All of his social medias will be down in the description as well as he and his twin brother's YouTube channel. So I'm going to link all that description below. Mike, again, thanks, brother, for coming on.
Yeah, no
and
problem.
until next time, until after UFC 303, me and Mike are out. See you next time.